and that's probably what takes so long. I noticed that when I was making it, it was starting to drag, but by then the editing process had already gone on for a few months, and I'm like, you know what? I don't care what anyone thinks of this. This is what the review's going to be, and I'm going to do better next time. And eventually, you know, that's what you got to do to succeed. You just got to plug on ahead, finish it, and tell yourself you can do better next time, and then actually try to do it. What I did was try to insert little rants. Now, the rant you're hearing now wasn't in the script, but it was true. Originally, it was a throwaway line, but I felt I had to really rant about how you could not find anything, and how people always complain how linear it is. I remember it was at this point that Final Fantasy 13 came out, and everyone was complaining about, you know, how the first half of the game is just a tunnel. And while that's obscene, and I have to make a really big point of that in the review, it's not as bad as this game, where you get no clues, and you're just wandering for days and days and days. So, I felt like I should make that point. I find it's much easier to make jokes about things you see, or stuff that is just stupid. But when it's a 2D game and very little's happening, you can't really make a joke. I mean, unless it's just some random crap that, you know, I don't really find funny, like, the fighter takes a crap in the woods, look.
Look at the manual for details. You couldn't put some lines of explanatory text in the game or tutorial. I'll give one NPC one line of dialogue.
I don't like brainless jokes. I mean, the occasional brainless joke is good, but if you have to resort to that for most of the review, there's no point in making the review. There's another major problem I had. Because I recorded this with a ROM, I didn't want to buy 54 wires to hook up my NES to a capture card. And I used a program called Camtasia. Now, Camtasia 6 has a function that makes it so that when it records, it doesn't record the mouse pointer. But I only had Camtasia 5. So, and I didn't realize this would be a problem until long after I recorded it. I realized, damn, my mouse pointer's in most of the shots. Oh man, nothing here, nothing here, nothing here. Ugh. I'm so happy they got rid of that, I swear to God.
Every time you press A, even by accident, a dialogue box will show up.
And most of you guys probably didn't notice it, but it's all over. It's in like every other video game shot, and it drives me crazy. And I said, you know what, if I ever make that mistake again, I'm gonna kill myself. In the Final Fantasy 2 review, I tried damn sure to make sure that mouse pointer wasn't in there, and it snuck in like 4 times. I'm like, you know, I mean, you forget about it. It took me a record time, actually. It took me 13 hours to win Final Fantasy 1. But that's because I played it non-stop and I went right through it. Yeah, I think it starts to get boring right about here. This is where everyone turned it off. I'm trying to make subtle digs at games I didn't like that much here. See if you can figure out which ones they are. And I probably had the mouse pointer there half the time. With Final Fantasy 2, which took me 79 hours, it was only there for like 15 minutes. I did pretty good, but the problem is those 15 minutes were like in key scenes. So that pissed me off. And you know, I'm not gonna have that problem later on. I can hook up the SNES, I can hook up the PlayStation pretty easily. So that's not a big deal. The Game Boy is gonna piss me off, but yeah.
First Final Fantasy has a job system. It sucks.
A lot of things about the first Final Fantasy sucked. I mean, I was surprised at how many times I said, and it sucks, in this review. And you know, I didn't want it to be a catchphrase, but it kind of turned into it. I'm thinking about using it elsewhere. Yeah, there are so many mistranslations of Final Fantasy, especially in the early games. Pretty much Final Fantasy VIII is the first game with a good translation. So you're going to see a lot of these translation errors in there. And I really think it's not because they thought Americans are stupid and they just dumbed the game down. I really think the team didn't know English that well. Yeah, here's a shot where the ADR is really obvious.
What does the thief do?
And it's one of the first times I've actually talking about the game, you know, how the thief sucks. I'm surprised how late this is.
First Final Fantasy game. Jack shit, right?
The thief can't steal. Unfucking believable.
Well, can he do anything else?
Yeah, I like that joke, but I think I could have done it better.
Can he find secret passages?
This is me learning that this scene is me learning that I couldn't really perform in front of the camera. I couldn't remember my lines, but what I did was I turned when I forgot the joke I turned when I forgot the line into a joke.
Can he wear green?
So that's what you should always do. If there's a problem, turn it into a joke. They translated something that's very short and sweet, like Final Fantasy 1, 2, and 3. But then, when they actually had to translate something with dialogue, they're like, oh, we can't do it. So they hired the cheapest guy they can find, named Ted Woolsey, who completely fucked it up. And he translated it like it was some really dumb kid show. He didn't really care. And that's why I say, if you're going to play Final Fantasy 4, 5, or 6, you better play them on the PlayStation, because they've been retranslated. Then 7, they tried to do themselves, and they really messed that up. Oh my god, there's so many typos, it's dumbed down, and... Yeah, there are a lot of problems with Final Fantasy 1 you don't even think about. Problems like that, you know, how the magic spells are so weak, and it takes you forever to frickin' use a command, or... And the one that really stunned me, how long it takes for you to, like, hit several enemies with magic attack. It was so bad, I had to put it in the review uncut, which is probably one of my favorite jokes in the review. The biggest technical problem I had with this review was that camera. I told you that I went on eBay and spent like $100 on what they said was a $600 camera, but they are goddamn liars. That was the worst camera I've ever seen. If you notice the resolution that happened, if you notice the resolution that you saw with the introduction I made to this video and the footage that you see of me in the review, the camera I bought said it recorded in 720p. What you see in the intro is 720p. What you see in the review is not 720p. It must be like 240p. And when you recorded video, the audio would just go away, and sometimes the video wouldn't even work. I had to make like 7 takes, and I had to do ADR constantly. ADR is when you re-record the dialogue and match it to your lip movements, and because of that, but except for like clothes and makeup, I essentially had to do the job of every single job on a film crew is. I had to do editing, I had to do music production, I had to do sound effects, sound effect creation, I had to do lighting, even though it doesn't look like it, and I couldn't believe it. I had to do ADR. I mean, this is a YouTube review because of that piece of crap camera. So for the Final Fantasy 2 review, I had to put it off until I bought a new camera. And the annoying thing is, the second camera I bought is 30 times better, and it was the same price. So live and learn.
How long it takes to hit 9 enemies at the same time with magic?
Yeah, this is a good joke, and I still can't believe it, but I think I put it in the wrong place in the review. This also reveals another technical problem I had. When I recorded the footage, I made these huge 6-hour-long videos, and the computer couldn't handle it, and all the videos got corrupt, so I had to convert them and reconvert them. And a lot of them were very glitchy. A lot of them had their tops and bottoms cut off, so I had to edit it like crazy for a long time. And I remember I had taped something like this, but I couldn't find it. So I had to go back at the very end and find it again, and re-record something like this. And I am not exaggerating. Something like this, which would take in any other Final Fantasy game about, I don't know, about 3 seconds. This took 1 minute. And that's what this game is. If you ever want to try this game, it's you waiting for commands to happen. That's it. That's this whole game. Don't play this game. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
I had another problem with the computer. Back then, I still had Windows XP, and I really miss it. But... And I didn't really have a problem with editing, per se. It was just that the video got so big by the hour mark when I actually started putting in the video footage that I ran out of memory. So then I had to, instead of working with 1 file, I had to split up into 7 files. And that just slowed it down a lot. I thought I'd learned my lesson with the Final Fantasy 2 review when I did that, but between the Final Fantasy 1 and Final Fantasy 2 review, I had to upgrade my computers to Windows 7, and that just slowed everything down. I mean, I don't care how good you think Windows 7 is, it's a lot slower than XP. So I had less memory to work with.
This flaw might not affect you that much.
Oh my god, I'm finally talking about the ineffective stuff. Damn. Took me forever.
Apparently, your characters are so stupid they can't understand that if one of the enemies died, you should hit the ones that are still there and not the ones that are dead. If you select the target,
And it took even longer for stuff to edit. So I was fighting lag to an unbelievable extent during Final Fantasy 2 that I didn't even experience in Final Fantasy 1. I guess editing this review gave me some a false sense of security.
The line there also ensures that you can't select yourself. But it's not really a problem. It just pisses you off. Constantly. There's an advantage to this flaw, though. If you played this game, you get a lot better than all the other Final Fantasy games.
Yeah, this is the most important distinction between the old and the new games.
The real reason this game is so hard is the amount of enemies that show up in these random encounters.
The old games are so much harder because they put so much more enemies on the screen and they don't give you a learning curve. Final Fantasy 1 just dumps you in there, just starts you in the game, and if you can't beat that first enemy, you are dead. At least in the other games, like 6, 5, the first enemies are easy, you know? Yeah, Zack getting killed like that is my first attempt at a running gag. Like, that was the first insanely funny, brutal murder I've ever seen. And that's gonna... And whenever I get killed in Final Fantasy, I think of Zack. And remember, fans of Crisis Core and Advent Children, Zack got machine gunned in the head. There's no way he can make a speech after that. But these early games, they give you nothing.
4 sets of 4 types of armor, all of which become obsolete once you move from one dungeon to the next. And a few cure spells that, frankly, at the start of the game are too damn weak to work. And the game doesn't give you a clue as to which characters can use which weapons. So unless you have a guide, you're screwed. And remember, you have to buy each weapon, give it to someone, and then equip it.
I know, I mean, that sounds obvious, but no one tells you that. And I felt like such an idiot when I was buying these weapons. I'm like, nothing's happening. Why isn't this working? You know, if you're too used to the remastered version, which I was, I mean, you buy the weapons and you give them to the guy.
10
and you're like,
hours.
Why isn't it working?
And look how long it takes to
God, I hated this game. Yeah, and just in case you forgot, leveling up in the old games takes forever. I mean, but this game, it's unbelievable. In every other game, you can press A and, you know, you can skip ahead, but you can't do that here, man. Oh my God. This game just sucks. I mean, you don't have to do it, but just think about it. It takes 10 hours to get to level 10. When you actually time yourself, if you try that in any of the new games, it really only takes you a half an hour to do that. It took me 10. And it wasn't because of the amount of battles I fought. It's because it was because of stuff like this, where everything just took forever.
So at the start of the game, you're at the knife edge of death every single second. The enemies beat the shit out of you. And then the bosses are insanely easy every time. Maybe it's because you're finally finding a battle.
Yeah, this game just insults you. It's like...
Just disappointing. After 15 hours or so...
It's like the enemies beat you to death.
The game is nothing.
You get 1 HP, and then you gotta fight this boss, which that, you know, if you cough on him, he'll die. But because you got 1 HP, it's over. So a good strategy is play this game several times, so that you'll know exactly where the boss is, and you'll know, okay, I'm gonna use all my potions now. And when you do that, you're fully healed, and you can just kill the guy instantly.
It was the most complex thing any gamer had seen at the time. But you know, once Final Fantasy 3 came out, an infinitely superior game, there was absolutely no reason to ever play this game again.
I really want to stress what I just said over there. I mean, you play Final Fantasy 3, you will never play Final Fantasy again. Ever. You play any of the other Final Fantasy games, except for Final Fantasy 2. You will never play Final Fantasy again. Ever.